Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Welcome to Unk and Few episode 10. It's your host, your boy with the most few. While we wait for Unk to get in the studio, man, shouts out to people who are out here supporting. Shouts out to the people out there who are, having a Sunday morning, man. The best way to start a Sunday morning, some good water, some good football talk. You feel me? Mm-mm. The best feeling. On God. On God. And as we wait for Unk football, he's going to be on his way. Shouts out to Unk. You know what I mean? How's everybody's morning going? How's everybody's blessed? I'm assuming, I'm hoping. You know what I mean? That's what it's all about right now. You know what I mean? That's what it's all about. You know what I mean? As we go and talk about all these football topics, man, the biggest one being the AFC. The AFC, bro. You know what I mean? My thing is, when we're talking about the AFC, we got to talk about the biggest and most important part of the AFC, which is the AFC North, man. The AFC North. And when we're talking about the AFC North, we're talking about essentially, we're talking about the Baltimore Ravens and Bengals. Cincinnati Bengals, man, the team that was able to, uh, win that Thursday night game, that crazy Thursday night game. We got to pray up for the Bengals. You know what I mean? Um, Especially Joe Burrow getting injured. I don't think it was really fair. You know what I mean? To see Joe Burrow go down. You know what I mean? By the way, the link in the chat is for Unk Football. You know what I mean? Uh, Link for Unk Football. He should be coming in any time now. Shouts out to Unk. Just having a few issues with StreamYards. It is what it is, but we gonna push through. We gonna still do our thing. Seeing Joe Burrow injured, there was rumors, major rumors, that he had been having this handy injury for a while. You know what I mean? So seeing him throw that touchdown and then him going in pain, it made me think right away of did he always have this issue? And did he even tell people about the issue? You know what I mean? And we have a guy here, Unk Football. So happy to have you in, my guy. We got it fixed up. I thought let's keep rolling and then let's see what happens. So happy
Hey,
to see you, man. How you doing, my guy?
better now, yeah.
Nice, nice. I'm happy you could hop in because I was like, what's going on with StreamYards today, man? But I'm happy we're in here. We're talking about, well, at least I'm touching on the Ravens and Bengals game on Thursday
Oh
night.
yeah, 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 yeah. Oh my God,
How did you feel about that, man? How did you
I
feel
felt
about
like I
that
was
game?
watching the end. I felt like I was watching the end of Cincinnati's ascendancy.
Yo,
Yeah,
right?
y- yeah. If you talk about we were trying to handicap the black and blue AFC North division. Well, I think you can count on your first tap out victim. Um, yeah, I don't really see how Cincinnati comes back from that, given the sluggish start they had to begin the season.
Oh man.
So yeah, to see that injury to that particular player does not encourage me at all about Cincinnati's chances going forward.
I feel you heavy because in the back of my mind, a few days before, Deshaun Watson, season
Hmm.
ending injury too.
Yeah,
So it's literally going to be black and blue or black and yellow to
I
finish
tell you,
off the AFC North, man.
it's a rugged division, and yeah, the pins are falling.
Man. And the thing
Yeah,
is, we lost Mark Andrews. Me, I'm a Ravens fan. I'm not gonna hide it.
yeah.
We lost Mark Andrews with that hip drop tackle. Lamar was limping because of that hip drop tackle. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And then we had, I think, another player was really injured. Odell around the end of the game. We had so many players hurt. The game felt sloppy. Even though the Ravens won, I was happy about it.
Yeah.
Game felt sloppy, bro. Very
It,
physical. You know what I
it
mean?
it felt like an AFC North game, is what it felt like.
And that's what I'm telling you. This AFC North is
Yeah.
crazy.
Well,
Cra-
yeah, look at Cleveland. Deshaun Watson got injured, like we said.
Yep.
They had that PJ guy come in there for a hot second, and
Yep.
now they're about on to their next guy up.
Mm.
DTR, they're calling him Reynolds.
Yeah,
So
Dorian Finney-Smith or something like that. Yeah, he's one of
yeah,
those.
yeah. So he's locked and loaded to go against that Pittsburgh defense this weekend. So
Mm.
yeah, yeah. My gut instinct and my internal bias towards Pittsburgh tells me that they should get another fluke win this weekend. They're probably taking advantage of that quarterback. And Baltimore
Uh,
handled their business.
yes, sir.
So the fun fact about this weekend, I mean, we're talking about the AFC North this weekend, but this weekend the AFC North plays the AFC North, right? So
Yes.
the Steelers are playing Cleveland,
Mm-hmm.
and Baltimore just kicked the shit out of out of Cincinnati and put Burrow out for the season.
Yeah.
So yeah, we may find ourselves with an inch of separation come Monday morning. If
It's
the
gonna be close.
Steelers manage to come through against that Cleveland defense, so
Yeah.
we'll see, man. We'll see. Yeah, I mean the Steelers have had a remarkable run of luck from their defense in the fourth quarter over the last month and well, basically for the whole season. So anxious to see if it continues.
My thing is, what shocks me about the Steelers is they're inching out wins in the fourth quarter, man.
Yeah,
And it's the defense who's keeping them in games.
yeah,
But Kenny Pickett, what impresses me about him is he doesn't turn the ball over.
yeah,
You know what I mean? He just keeps that ball secure, dog, and that leads to wins. Like that win last week
yeah,
versus I think it's the Packers or something like that.
yeah.
Packers were supposed to win that. And then last minute, Kenny Pickett, drives the ball down the field. Boom. I think it was either a field goal or a late touchdown, won that game. And that's how the Steelers have been going last minute, keeping the ball safe and scoring touchdowns. And hey,
Well,
that works in football, bro. And
it sure
also that
does.
Jalen running back, he was killing it too. He's doing a good
Well,
job.
I actually, yeah, no, I mean, I watched every minute of that game, obviously. As a
Mhm.
just as a fan, right? I mean, I found myself cheering like crazy when they got that first interception, because you look at the byline and it looks like Jordy Love had a terrible game. It looks like Jordy Love had a terrible game, but he did
Mhm.
not. Both of those interceptions came
No.
deep into the fourth quarter. So he had a clean sheet just like Pickett and
Mhm.
even more yards than Pickett going into the fourth quarter, and they were driving. They were first and 15 in the red zone.
Mhm.
Two plays later, we had the interception. All
Yes, sir.
right. And then after that, the Steelers gave up the ball and they had another chance. The Packers had another chance, and
Mhm.
again, they were intercepted. So both of those interceptions came very late in the game. And once the Steelers had to close the game out, that's exactly what they did. They were facing a crucial like 3rd and 6 or 3rd and 8, and Kenny
Yep.
Pickett actually ran it.
Oh
Kenny Pickett
yeah, he
ran
did
it
have that run at the end. Yeah.
and did the
Yeah.
slide and secured the game. It was game over at that point. There was less than a minute to go. So yeah,
Mm.
very efficiently, Kenny Pickett, if he keeps the turnovers down, is sort of game managing his way to what's looking like another 500 season for Tomlin. Not that that should be the standard of the goal, but it's a nice thing to have in your hip pocket, nevertheless, Mr. Tomlin.
Mm.
So, anyways, yeah, and then there have been rumblings and complaints about Pickett and whatnot, but I guess that's just people being fans. I mean,
Yeah.
he's a long way from Roethlisberger's first couple of seasons, and in fact,
Mhm.
I've said it in the past. He reminds me actually more of Stalwart, or not Stalwart. He reminds me of Terry Bradshaw in his first couple of seasons.
Oh,
Yeah, because he
okay.
was. Yeah, he was just young and wild, and not that
Yeah.
great. But so yeah. So that seems to be the case, unless of course he's Mike Tomczak, right? Who knows? Who knows at this point? It's early to tell. But Pickett's been managing to put the W's on the board. So What do you
Yeah.
want? But the key to that game was certainly not Kenny Pickett. It was the
Oh,
Steelers' running game.
Jalen Warren and Najee Harris. Jalen Warren had
Yeah,
15 carries, so 101 yards. I'm looking at it right now. Najee
yeah.
Harris, 16 carries, 82 yards. They
205,
both scored a
205
touchdown.
total rushing yards between those two guys.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, analysts were talking all week about how it was Jalen Warren time and that he had, finally superseded Najee Harris and whatnot. But the box score tells an even split
Oh, yeah,
between the
yeah,
two guys. Yeah, and in fact,
yeah.
Harris actually had one more touch, I believe, than Warren. So it was
He
pretty much
did.
a 50-50 split. Both of them catching occasional passes, but mostly just plowing ahead as running backs, right? But
Mm,
Warren had the more productive game of the two backs. And so people are talking about him all week long. But we'll see how that backfield continues to shake out. Tomlin is fiercely loyal to Najee Harris. He sees him as a special type of player. Whatever. Um, yeah, but to
I
me,
guess
Jalen,
Killer Nation is a ain't feeling Harris,
yeah,
Najee Harris.
not quite like Mike is. Because
Yeah.
we all look at Warren and say like, we should play this guy like more, and we've been playing that. We've been saying that since like week 4, and so
Mm,
it's finally getting to that point where Jalen Warren seems to be getting his due, and it's making the Steelers a better team.
nice.
Right. But so that was the story there. That was the one category, only the one category where statistically they perform better than their competition. And in fact,
Mm,
that's been the story of the Steelers all year long, is that everyone, like analysts, bettors, everybody's shaking their heads and chuckling and
they're
laughing,
like,
going like,
what's going on?
right? Because the
Talk to
Steelers consistently get outproduced by the teams that they're beating. Like as far as total
Mm,
yards are concerned, like in
yeah,
just about every category except final points scored.
and that's what I'm saying. When I look at the Steelers, I give it up to good coaching, Mike Tomlin,
Yeah,
finding ways to put the Steelers in position to win games that they usually would lose. He's basically doing the opposite of what the Patriots are doing. You know what I mean? He's
yeah,
trusting his quarterback and he's saying, "Yo, you're either gonna hand off the football or you're gonna do a small dig route." 5 yard in, you're not going to do too much. You're going to do the minimum. Just don't turn the football over. We're going to be a running and defensive team. And ironically, the Ravens are doing the same, literally, with Gus Edwards and Keaton Mitchell.
yeah.
Running the ball, no turnovers, good defense. That's always a winning formula in the NFL, man.
Well,
You know what I mean?
maybe no turnovers by the running backs, but we can't say no turnovers for Baltimore.
Yes, bro. Don't get me started,
There was a
man.
rather key turnover at around the 8-minute mark of the final quarter last weekend.
Man, and I'm telling you right now, that Cleveland Baltimore game, bro. It made me mad because it was in the bag. A fourth quarter, we were up by I think maybe close to 3 touchdowns, 3 scores, and Cleveland came. Let me tell you something. That was Deshaun's best game. Best game as a Cleveland Brown. And the craziest part is it was maybe one, well, not even maybe, his last game as a Cleveland Brown this
Yeah,
season, and now validating that his contract was ass. It was
yeah.
trash.
Oh yeah, yeah,
You know
yeah. It
what
was
I
a
mean?
dumb. Yeah,
And
that
I'm like
that's
thinking, look
that's
at that defense, it's so good, crazy.
Yeah, I know we've addressed that on numerous different times, but yeah,
Mm,
no, that's here are my notes regarding Baltimore.
let's talk about
Baltimore
it.
starts off well, but failed to put the game away. I literally have this written on a scrap piece of paper down here, and to me,
Yeah,
that was really the story of the game because
yeah.
right up until that interception, Cleveland did not take the lead with that interception. It was
No.
31-30. Right.
Mhm,
So Baltimore
mhm.
got the ball back after that interception and touchdown, right?
Yep.
They got the ball back after the pick six. It's 8 minutes left. Like, shouldn't you have just run the ball down their throat, got another field goal, and closed the game out easy peasy? Like, no reason to
Yes.
start breathing heavy, right? No, that didn't happen. Right? So instead, Cincinnati gets the ball back and they yield the field goal.
Yes.
So kind of like taking down the tent poles and folding up the tent after the pick six is basically what Baltimore did, in my opinion, whether they
Yeah.
intended to or not. I'm just saying mentally, that's certainly the impression they gave you, is that they folded up after that. But they had every opportunity to continue to preserve that win
Oh my
if they
God.
just put their heads down and continue to march forward. But they seem to get flustered.
Then this is the thing, man. For me, I've been critical of fourth quarter adjustments by the
Yep.
Ravens,
Yeah, you have been.
especially
That's
in the
true.
clutch. I've always talked about it because we get great leads. We are barely ever, down in points.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And at that point, you have to run the football. You have to trust your running backs. You have to trust Gus Edwards. You have to trust Keaton Mitchell. You have to maybe call some run designs for Lamar because that's how you close it out. Use the clock in your favor. Now, here's a good thing. That's what they did against the Bengals on
Hmm.
Thursday night.
Yeah.
When even the backup scared me, man. The Bengals backup scared me because I'm like, damn, he's kind of slicing and dicing, bro. Don't give them any hope. Stomp on their necks.
Yeah.
Stomp on their necks and run the football. And that leads me to the Texans beating the Bengals. I talked about this last week. CJ Stroud, low key MVP. And you shut it down, Unc. You shut it down,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
What do
I
you think of the Texans beating the Bengals last week? How
Well,
crazy is that game?
I shut it down just simply because he's a rookie and he's
Mhm.
clearly going to get the rookie MVP award. He's
Oh,
definitely well on his way towards that.
yeah.
Um, but we're going to have this discussion a little bit more in the podcast. But I did a bit of a deep dive on our quarterback
Oh,
MVP candidates. Yes, I did,
let's go.
because you asked the question in the content email where you were suggesting, is Dak an MVP? To which I also
Oh.
chuckled, and I chuckled
You did laugh a
slightly,
little bit, yeah.
slightly bemused, and then I did a deep dive into it all. So that's going to be an interesting discussion. Trust me, that's a
Yeah.
fact. You asked a good question there, and it's a fascinating answer. So, but
Mhm.
uh, but anyways, yeah, yeah, no,
CJ
that
Stroud, man, he outdueled Joe Burrow
yeah,
and got the game-winning touchdown.
impressively so.
And now the Texans are in the fight for that division, the AFC South versus the Jags, because the Jags got destroyed by San Fran. You know what I mean? So
I
I'm
know,
gonna
right?
check the record, but man, the Texans could win that division.
Oh, sure
I'm
they
telling
could.
you. You
Sure
know
they
what I
could. Now, let
mean?
me tell you, that was like a big surprise to me for sure.
Shocker, dog.
But
Yeah, they're
Texas,
5-4.
Texas ticked all the boxes of a
Mhm.
dominating performance. They had a bell cow running back out of Devin Singletary, right?
Oh,
30 carries
definitely.
for 150 yards. They had not one
Mhm.
but two wide receivers well over the century mark in receiving yards. CJ
Yes,
Stroud, of
sir.
course, had 325, 340 passing yards and,
Yes, sir.
however many touchdowns. And I think he had a pick, right? But
He had a
the big
touchdown and a
difference the big difference with Burrows was that they got into the backfield on Burrows about four times. Plus, Burrows
yeah.
had two picks of his own, right? So not the best day for Burrows. I can personally attest from fantasy standpoint.
Mm.
But. So it wasn't a good football day for Joe Burrows in Cincinnati, or a
Mhm.
fantasy day on either regard. But nevertheless, I mean, it's not like Burrows had a substandard day. But outside of the sacks and the two picks, I mean, he did put up numbers. It wasn't like the two teams weren't dueling. But where Texas really took the game away
Mm.
from the beginning of the second half, or pardon me, from
Mhm.
within before the second half, in the second quarter through right till about 3 minutes left in the third quarter, it was all
Mm.
Texans. Touchdown, field goal, touchdown, And so Cincinnati,
Yes.
let them put up a whole bunch of points. So yeah, they led and they were comfortable ahead of Cincinnati throughout the game. So yeah,
Mhm.
it wasn't until the very end of the game, the end of the fourth quarter, where Cincinnati finally put up enough points to make the game look closer than it was. But
Yeah.
Texans dominated that game, and yeah, anybody who's starting to look at field or end of the
MVP.
year playoff possibilities, you should start to figure the Texans in somewhere, especially if the Jaguars don't sort of bounce back from that big win, or loss, I should say, to San Francisco. But I have a feeling they will. But Lord have mercy, they're like torture watching those guys this year.
They got spanked, and I didn't expect. Remember last week we're talking about our possible games of the week.
Yep.
We circled San Fran versus the Jags, my man, and look what happened.
As a
Pop,
bet.
pop, pop, belt to ass. It was like, bro, it was ugly. And then for me, when I saw CJ Stroud do that game winning drive to set up the field goal to win the game, I was like, damn, they trust this guy. This kid is confident. And D'Amico Ryans, I think he needs some coach of the year nominations or maybe some kind of respect, because he brought a team that had no hope and had nothing going on to possibly winning their little, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The division.
I'm actually kind of feeling you on that coach of the year type of thing, because it's not just one player, right? Like all it's all young players on that team mostly, and they're all responding and producing. So yeah, like you got to remember, right? Devin Singletary is the backup, right? Damian Pierce is the main running back in Houston. Right? Nico Collins is your wide receiver one, but there's Noah Brown in there getting 172 yards, right? And plus, you're getting good performance out of both your defensive and offensive lines. All of that are indicators of strong coaching. So yeah, I'm feeling you on that. Yeah.
And you know what? It's a culture change and shift, but something that's not really a huge culture change and shift is the Cowboys beating the Giants again. That's not a culture change. That's not a shift. It is a murder. The Cowboys 49-17 on the Giants.
In recent years, anyways.
True. In recent years, if you go back probably early 2000s, 90s, that was not the case at all.
Yeah.
But Dak Prescott with an impressive game, 404 yards, 4 touchdowns. And I think he added one on the ground. He ran for one. This tells me something that I don't even want to admit. We got to start having this conversation if we're serious football people. By the way, slap a like for watching this show. We love y'all. We appreciate y'all. Thank you so much for spending your morning with us. You could have been anywhere, but you're here with us. Slap us a like. We love y'all. Appreciate y'all. Dak in the MVP conversation. You said you were going to talk to me about it, man. Talk to me about it, man.
Well, it was funny. Again, in your content letter, suggestions letter, we were going to analyze certain games, right? And this was one of them, right? And then it's like, I come to do my analysis on it, and I'm like, there's really nothing to say here. It's like the whole section's empty. It just says complete D dominance. Right? like Dallas just took them to the woodshed and could not stop. Yeah, but in that game, Dak continued a trend since Dallas has come off their bye week, and that trend has been MVP candidate. Like I said, I sort of chuckled sensibly at your initial suggestion that Dak could be, I'm like, oh, here he goes again. He's always pushing the envelope, this fella, always like coming up with these interesting questions. And then I started to actually crunch the numbers on which quarterback is where. And I guess part of it is that there's not a single quarterback in the league this year that's really dominant and on fire statistically.
You're right.
Right? Yeah. And we have our usual candidates in that mix. But none of them are really putting up, the Marino year, right? Even though Tua started off hot and all that stuff, none of them are really projecting out to intense numbers.
No.
So that makes for an actual kind of an interesting conversation about who is where, because as we know, right, the MVP candidate's just got to be a quarterback because that's the NFL,
quarterback award, which is pathetic.
So let's get that out of the way. That any MVP conversation is pretty much predicated on the notion that it's going to be a quarterback. So if we reduce our conversation to the QBs, it gets easier. So yeah, Dak is MVP. So let me just cite off some numbers here to tell you where my heart is at on that type of thing. Mr. Dak Prescott has about 2,400 yards in passing so far over 9 games. That's about 8 yards per passing attempt, right? Decent. He's got
Nice.
17 TDs with 6
Okay.
interceptions. He's got 2
Yeah.
rushing TDs and 2 fumbles, right? And only
Okay.
about 135 yards rushing. So whoever wanted to ensure that Dak Prescott turned into a drop back pocket quarterback, congratulations, you've achieved your goal. But so fairly decent numbers and not burning down the house, and a completion percentage around 68 or 69%. So pretty decent, right?
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Not, not bad numbers, right? So you would
Yeah.
assume that there are better numbers out there, right? But you'd be
True.
surprised. Mr. Jalen Hurts does have some decent numbers, comparable, right? Around 2,350 yards in passing.
Mm.
But he's got 15 passing TDs with 8 interceptions. So more interceptions than
Oh,
Dak, right?
yeah.
But now this is where Hurts separates himself from Dak. If you were to sort of tip the scales in Hurts' favor, this would be the one stat, the reason why you do so. And that's 316 yards rushing with 7 rushing TDs. So I mean, they all count, right? So that's 22
Yeah.
TDs. So
Yeah.
that's good. So he sort of has the edge there, I would say, barely.
Mhm.
But it makes you ask yourself, well, if it's that like sort of close, and Dak can just throw his ring in like in there after like 3 or 4 games off his bye week, like how mediocre is the rest of our MVP pack, right? And it
Yes.
gets you to asking yourself, well, right? So what's a guy like Brock Purdy look like? We had people earlier in the year saying
Yeah,
like
we did.
he's
Yeah,
an
we discussed
he's
that.
an
Yeah, a lot
MVP
of people.
candidate, right?
There was
And
hype
you'll
there. Yeah.
and you'll notice I've left off Lamar and I've left off Mahomes here because their numbers are good. They're comparable with Hurts, right? They're all sort of in there about
Yeah.
the same, right?
Yeah.
And Mahomes especially is sort of like down because his rushing TDs are down this year, right?
Yeah.
So none of them are really sticking their necks out as being better than anybody, right? So, but Purdy becomes a fascinating conversation piece, right? Because now all of a
Okay.
sudden you're talking about a guy who's 15-5, comparable numbers, right? Even fewer interceptions than some of these
Okay.
other guys, right? He's
Yeah.
getting over 9 yards per passing attempt, right? Which is higher than Dak, right?
Okay.
And he's like 69% completion. And he's got 2 TDs rushing,
Okay.
only 107 yards of rushing. So he's not a dominant rusher. He runs what he has to, right? But
No.
again, like these numbers are all fairly competitive with these other MVP quarterbacks. Plus, he's got a good team and all that type of stuff that's going places. But when we start saying that, well, okay, so what's our non-MVP candidate, Mr. CJ Stroud, look like? Because remember,
Oh,
he's
yeah.
a
Let's talk
rookie.
about that. He's a
He's a
rookie.
rookie.
Yes.
He's a rookie, so he's not the MVP, right? right.
Hey,
He's got
I got you on that one. I know CJ's
yeah,
numbers are nice. Go ahead.
2,600 passing yards, so more than any of these other clowns, right? But he's at 61% completion, so he's not super accurate. But he's only got 3 fumbles, and he's got 2 rushing TDs, and only 2 interceptions, and
Yes.
15 touchdowns. So he's actually got a better TD interception ratio than Purdy does, for example. Right?
Yes. He secures the football. And those 2 picks came, I think. Well, one of them came in the Bengals game, and then another one came, I think, 2 weeks prior. So they're recent. It's not like he was throwing picks earlier in the season. No,
Yeah, that's
this
right.
is
That's
a
right.
recent development. He was
Right.
securing the football for about 6-7 weeks in the
Yeah.
season. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say, I think our biggest takeaway from this conversation is that, production seems to be down among your top tier quarterbacks.
That's true too. Yeah.
But that it's a bit of a jumbled mess. And I think the
Mm,
MVP conversation is very appropriate to have right now, because I would say there's got to be at least four good candidates in there, of whom I would also include Mr. Stroud, rookie or
right,
otherwise.
right.
Yeah, or maybe we need to start looking around the league for somebody besides a quarterback. Maybe, yeah, yeah.
That's
So,
where it gets
anyway, so
interesting
yeah,
because this is where it gets interesting because
yeah,
this is a down quarterback year. Meaning,
yeah,
in general, there's no quarterback who's making you pop your eyes out.
that's
Like
right.
last season, we had Mahomes win the MVP, but Jalen Hurts was pressing him. It was
Yeah,
basically a two-man race. You know what I mean?
yeah,
The previous years, it was Aaron Rodgers with Devontae Adams, and they were connecting. It was clear from jump. Aaron
yeah,
Rodgers was going to win the MVP.
right,
Not only having the best team, but the best quarterback play. You look
right.
at the Eagles right now, even though Jalen Hurts is doing pretty good, he still has 8 picks. He still has a lot of fumbles. He doesn't look the same. He's been outdueled by like other
Yeah,
quarterbacks. Like it's not like he's dominating as he used to. And
that's right.
Mahomes, he's not dominating like he used to as well. And then you have Lamar. For me, I of course I'm biased. I rock with Lamar, but Lamar is not having a Lamar season because Lamar, when he won his MVP, he would throw like 5 touchdowns in a game, and it's over. Like he's not having that crazy production like he used to. You know what I mean? So we're having a down quarterback year, and he leaves the window open for other positions. I
Yeah,
wish the league promoted other positions because we have AJ Brown having an amazing season. Tyreek Hill,
yeah.
we talked about him, amazing season. TJ Watt and Miles Garrett, two guys having amazing seasons.
If there was ever a year to
You
look
know,
at the defensive player as your MVP of the whole league, this would be a good year,
it would be
right?
a perfect year. And then in my mind, I'm just looking at it and I'm like, damn, is it also the year of the backup quarterback? Because we look at the quarterback position, so many of them getting hurt. Josh Dobbs, I think that's one of the stories of the year.
I wa-
Minnesota is looking like a great team. What are your thoughts on Josh
yeah,
Dobbs?
yeah, yeah. I meant to bring that up actually.
Yeah,
It was kept real quiet. I didn't even notice the trade right, when it happened in the same space where it happened. I had to like.
yeah,
I'm just looking through the fantasy quarterback rankings, and I'm seeing Josh Dobbs from Minnesota. I'm like going record scratch. What?
yeah.
So, but his performance since he's been in Minnesota is he's starting to get a reputation. Have football will travel, right? The guy's been traded so
Right.
many times, but almost everywhere he goes, he makes an immediate impact. So go Josh
Yeah.
Dobbs. So yeah,
Shouts out to Joe. Yeah.
Dobbs is
Go
looking
ahead.
like a very, very, very a productive replacement for Kirk Cousins. It's a very similar type of game. They're getting very similar levels of
Mm.
production. And yeah, Minnesota's actually a bettor's dream right now. They're on a 5-0 against the spread streak. I mean, Minnesota's, for all the
Oh,
troubles it's had, yeah, I know, for all the troubles it's had, Minnesota, quiet as it's kept, is keeping on, keeping on. So yeah, no, I'm not crying for Minnesota anytime. I'm not crying for Minnesota anytime soon. They seem to be doing just fine. And Josh Dobbs is just,
yeah.
he's a great little surprise. And as a fantasy quarterback, the guy's been incredibly
Mhm.
productive. The guy's been putting up 20 plus points a game like 3 weeks in a row.
I'm not
So
even that surprised by that because he was playing some good football in Arizona before he
in
got traded.
Arizona, yeah,
They beat Dallas. People forget early in the season, Arizona
yeah,
Cardinals beat Dallas, and
that's
Dallas right
right.
now is looking like a big, massive, strong team. Now that game against the Saints, where Josh Dobbs came and dominated, he had 268 yards, a touchdown, and what I like about him too is that he does production on the ground. He had 8 carries, 44 yards, and a touchdown on the ground.
Yeah,
He
the guy,
opens up that offense with his legs. He
yeah,
can move a little bit. You know what I mean?
he's actually a
Mm.
very versatile quarterback. I'm just not sure why he's never really caught on permanently somewhere. Maybe the guy's got a bit of a shelf life. Maybe he's easy to
Yeah.
figure out after a dozen games or something. I don't know, man. So,
And then
anyways,
and
but I'm
yeah.
pleasantly surprised. I'm
Very
pleasantly surprised by what Josh Dobbs is doing, and what Minnesota is doing. Because remember, it's not just Cousins
mm,
that's down, right? It's Jefferson's down too. and there
Jefferson Brown,
and
man. Right.
there's injuries in their backfield, right? I mean, like, so a lot of
Oh.
skill position players are injured in Minnesota right now.
And they're 6-4 right now. This week they're gonna be playing the Denver Broncos. Sunday night football, I believe, today. But this was not really on the list, but I was curious, Onk. I wanna get your thoughts about the Broncos coming back.
Yeah,
The Broncos coming. Russell Wilson was looking like Seattle Russ. Let him cook. Let Russ cook. And let Josh Allen throw another pick. Like, man,
yeah,
what was that? Unc, tell me what you felt about that game. You know what I mean? The Broncos coming back.
yeah,
Shocking everybody. Shocking even me.
yeah. It didn't shock me that much. I mean, we've talked about how
No.
Buffalo's been on a bit of a slide,
Yeah.
and I'm pretty sure that Denver had hit rock bottom. Not even in the 70-20 loss, but a couple weeks after that. So yeah, I didn't think there was anywhere to go but up for Denver. And as what
Mm.
often happens in the NFL, like once the pressure's off, once everyone's had their fun teeing off on how bad your performance was, a certain week or whatever, people have, guffawed and written you off for the season. That's often when you can sometimes find yourself. When you're out as a team, you can find yourself as a team sometimes. You're out in the wilderness to the point where people have even stopped talking about you. They don't expect anything anymore.
Right.
Quite often in that point in the season, it's like a tale of two seasons, just very much like NFL games are often the tale of two halves, right? So,
Mhm.
what a team was doing in the first half isn't necessarily how they're going to perform in the second half, right? 16,
Mhm.
17 games, that's a long season, right?
It
So,
is.
yeah, to me, that type of consistency, good or bad, is unlikely. That's why there've been so few 0-16, 0-17 teams in league history. We've had
Shouts
a
out to
couple.
the Lions. Shouts out to the Cleveland Browns.
A unique level of performance. So yeah, like
Yeah,
so any given Sunday is a saying for a reason, right?
it
So
is.
yeah, it's quite remarkable, to see Denver come back, but not really that surprising in my books. And Buffalo, especially, I think is in trouble. I think they're on their way to like a 500 season, which is a disaster for them, of course.
Well, what did
But
you think about that Ken Dorsey firing? I think he got scapegoated, brother. Or do you think he
eh,
deserved that firing? What do you think, man?
that's hard to say. I mean,
Mm,
these teams are like tankers at sea. You don't turn them around immediately with any one coaching decision, right? And that's the point I was about to make in Denver with Sean Payton. We all know Sean Payton's resume. We all know what caliber of coach he is. It's
right.
inevitable that eventually he would quiet the storm he sees around him and finally get
Mm,
a decent football product on the field. It's not like he doesn't have players, and it's not like he doesn't have coaching schemes and experience. He has all of that stuff.
mm.
But yeah, I think Denver just needed a little space to breathe, and you see what's happening.
Yeah, and for me, I'm just so impressed of how they're squeaking out wins. And you know what? Here's what's gonna shock you. Their defense gave up 70 points to Miami. We all saw that epic failure. But their defense is low key playing
Coming around.
great football. They're coming
Yeah.
around. They're causing turnovers. They're hitting. I think there was like 4 or maybe 5 fumbles in that Buffalo game. Like, bruh, that's called pressure. That's called pressuring the quarterback. That's
Yep.
called tackling. That's called punching the football out. That's effort. You know what I
Yep.
mean? And that win, even though it was an ugly win, let's be real,
Hmm.
but it was deserved on the Denver side because Denver was playing great football on all phases of the game. I was very, very impressed by Russ. Russ was jiggling out, moving a little bit, doing little shovel passes, improvising. And
Hmm.
he really reminded me of Seattle Russ. And I'm really interested in what happens because they're technically in the hunt for a playoff position. They went from a tanking, lottery draft team to in the hunt. Who would have thought, bro? And
Yeah.
now Buffalo is looking like, oh, I think Buffalo. Man, they're even beefing among each other, among players. It's crazy.
Yeah, exactly. Buffalo is definitely on the verge of getting into that type of space where, players start to turn
Oh,
on each other and whatnot because, much was expected out of Buffalo. And instead, they're getting a shit sandwich, um, mostly due to those turnovers by Josh Allen. Um, yeah. So I consider that to be definitely very real. Like Sean Payton is a good coach. He's eventually and like Denver has tools. So like
yeah.
we've all sort of attributed much of the problems in Denver to be sort of like a leaderless, rudderless type of ship, inexperienced coaching, poor draft decisions. The list goes on.
Yeah, man.
Sean Payton's not a guy who's going to tolerate that.
No.
So it's just a matter of time before the ethos that Sean Payton represents is all over Denver. So, good things will come to Denver, but they need some patience.
Yeah.
And you've seen by the recent results what can happen with that team if you just sort of relax and
Yeah.
give them a bit of space to breathe.
I think the theme of this pod this week is run the football, play defense.
Yeah,
let's
yeah,
be real. The Steelers are doing that, the Ravens are doing that, the Broncos are doing that, and they're getting a whole lot of W's. You know what I mean?
yeah, dude.
Some Jameis
Yeah,
Winston,
dude.
no, we eating dubs. You know what I mean? But what I want to touch on, man, as we move out throughout, the pod, brother. What are
Yeah,
your lines and spreads, bro, for week 10? What are you looking at? I'm gonna pull up the
yeah. Bring up the big
the
board,
Vegas.
buddy.
I'm bring up the big board, my guy. We're gonna look at it. I'm gonna look at what
Well, tell you
Vegas
what,
is
while you're
saying.
doing
We're
that,
gonna
let
see
me
what
just,
Uncle is saying.
while you're doing that, just let me
Mhm.
add a quick addendum to our earlier conversation about the AFC North. We were quickly
Oh yeah, for
saying
sure.
that,
Talk to us. Yeah.
yeah, just let me talk because I think that is interesting. And like I said, it is AFC North weekend. But the one thing
Mhm.
that was missing from that conversation, though, was a quick rundown of the remaining schedules for the teams.
Ooh,
And I
good
just,
point. Yeah,
right,
great.
because let's face it, right, you're basically what we're looking at now would appear to be like the Steelers and
And the
and
Ravens very
Baltimore
soon. Yep.
sort of like getting just razor separation.
Mm,
Cincinnati's sort of falling out of the mix because of the injury to Burrows, but I guess
yeah.
we'll have to see how his replacement does, right?
Mhm.
And then, of course, Cleveland being eternally Cleveland, but with a knockout defense this year and
Wow.
a proclivity for putting up 30 points when they get a hair up their butt. So let's see who's playing who over the last 6 or 7 games of the year.
Sure.
Now,
Yeah.
of course, Cincinnati and Baltimore just got one out of the way on Thursday night, right? So they
Mhm.
both played 10 or 11 games, and Baltimore mercifully has a bye week coming up. I'm sure they're just like panting to get across the yeah. They're looking forward to that.
Yeah.
No, week 11, of course, Cincinnati played the Ravens. And
Mhm.
in week 12, the Ravens are at the Chargers. Week 13, they got a bye. Then
Yes.
they've got the Rams at home. Then they're at Jacksonville, at San Francisco, and then they've got Miami at home. So it looks to me like Baltimore's probably got the more challenging schedule because
Very tough.
The Steelers have Cleveland at home today.
Mhm.
Or pardon me, they're at Cleveland today, I should say. And then they're at Cincinnati. So Cincinnati's reeling. We'll
Mhm.
have to see. Both of those are winnable games, right? And then they've
Yes.
got Arizona at home. And then they've got New England at home on a Thursday nighter. So a short week after the AZ game. And then they've got Indianapolis. They're on the road at Indianapolis. Then they've got Cincinnati at home, and then they finish on the road. Pittsburgh finishes on the road at Seattle in week 18. So,
Whoa.
yeah,
So
so
that's an
the,
easy schedule.
that's an
Steelers for
easy
what?
fucking schedule for the Steelers if they play right. Few winnable
Bro.
games in there. And then, so of course, Cincinnati has Baltimore, they lost. Then they
Yeah.
got the Steelers at home.
Oh, yeah.
Now check this out. This is the fascinating thing that's emerging here.
Okay.
But then Cincinnati's at Jacksonville. Then they've got
Mhm.
Indy at home, Minnesota at home, the Steelers at home, and then they're
Yeah.
at KC. So Cincinnati's got some challenges in there. But did you notice that
Yeah.
Jacksonville is in there again?
Jacksonville,
Jacksonville is like an honorary member of the AFC North in the final 6 weeks of the season.
yeah.
Because guess who Cleveland plays in Week 14? They got
Jacksonville.
Jacksonville at home. So
Man.
Jacksonville has played. They beat the Steelers earlier in the year, but they're
Yeah.
about to play the Ravens, Cincinnati, and Cleveland over a 4-week stretch, right?
Yeah. They're on
Almost
the
back to
schedule.
back, almost back to back. So it's almost like they're like this honorary member of the AFC North. So it's like Jacksonville. Jacksonville may end up being the key to the AFC North. How retarded is that,
It's
right? I mean,
incredibly retarded because you're like, man, the most random AFC South team is gonna
but
decide records.
but check out Cleveland though. Cleveland's got the Steelers at home, of course, but then they're at Denver, at the Rams. Then they've got Jacksonville at home, Chicago at home. Then they're at Houston. Then they've got the Jets at home. So I would say Cleveland's got a challenging schedule too.
Yeah, Cleveland is gonna go through some games because those teams are not easy. They're not easy outs. It
And
sounds like the Steelers have the easiest schedule in the AFC North left.
and the 1-game advantage. And if they win
Yeah,
today, it'll be a
yeah.
2-game advantage
They did.
over Cleveland.
They beat the Ravens. Yep, they beat the Ravens. So if the Steelers win today, I think the Ravens
They've
will
got a
still be
tiebreaker.
number one, but they could be on a tiebreaker on conference wins, divisional wins. There'll be
Yeah.
a tiebreaker, and I think don't the Steelers and the Ravens play in December or close to the end of the season?
I was looking for that, but I don't see that in there.
Yeah, I think there is. Let me check
Unless
right quick and then get back to you. I could be
yeah,
wrong. I
yeah,
don't
yeah.
know.
Correct
But
me if
it's
I'm
gonna go
wrong
down
on
to
that,
the
but
wire.
yeah,
It's gonna
because
go down to the wire for sure. That's all I know.
and
for sure. It's gonna
customarily they
be
have ordinarily they usually play each other at the last week of the season just because it's a fan favorite. So, anyways, yeah.
yes, actually, January 7th, it's Ravens versus Steelers. January 7th,
Oh, okay,
Ravens versus Steelers,
okay.
last game of the year.
All right, so I missed that one there.
So that could decide the entire not
Yeah,
only conference but playoff seeding. You know what I
yeah.
mean?
My
Because
guess,
these are playoff games.
though, is that Baltimore's the cream of that division. If you ask me, I mean, even as a Steelers fan, I'm going to say that Baltimore's got more talent this year as far as offense goes. So the cream should rise to the top. And so, anyways, yeah, I'm expecting Baltimore to be there. At the end, I expect them to not need the tiebreaker to beat the Steelers, but the Steelers are looking like they could find themselves in the mix for a wild card. The schedule adds up. The schedule adds up.
The schedule looks great for the Steelers, as I say.
Now, let me prevail on you for one more thing before we get into the point spreads.
Yeah.
And that's just a quick thing on the power rankings, the top 5 sort of, because I did sort of a more of my points for, points against type of analysis versus my own gut feeling and all that and whatnot. But your most dominant teams in the NFL right now on pure points for, points against, plus their win totals and whatnot, obviously, is like Baltimore, the Cowboys, and the 49ers are the only team that are in double digits with their points for, points against, and also have like at least a 7-3, 7-2 type of record, 8-1, right? So yeah, like and in fact, believe it or not, Baltimore has scored more points this year than Miami.
Whoa, really?
They're the only team in the NFL with 300 points scored for.
Oh shit!
Yeah.
That's surprising. I didn't even know that.
And less than 200 points scored against. So the body of work for Baltimore puts them in sort of in the top 3, no matter what your standings are, as far as I'm concerned. But Dallas, grudgingly, I've got to put them in there because like they're very impressive. They've got like 270 points scored for and 100 versus 165 against for a plus 11 and a half points for and against, right?
Yeah,
with a 6-3 record, right? Second in their division, but it's still I don't know. It's hard to exclude them from the top 5 conversation right now. And so the other one that's sort of in there, like I said, is the 49ers are still impressive, right? 252 versus 143. They're the only team over 12 points. So, yeah, Miami, much less impressive. Philly, much less impressive. Even the Ravens, unfortunately, much less impressive Pardon me,
Probably
sorry,
the
not
Chiefs,
not
right?
not the Ravens, the Chiefs.
Yeah,
Far
the
less
Chiefs are
impressive on the
thinking.
points, 4 points a game. They're all in the 6.3 to 7.2 points for and against difference. So it's a positive, right?
Oh,
But
okay,
it's
okay.
like half of what the 49ers are getting.
Yes, yes.
And
Because
Baltimore and Dallas are similar, right? So
yeah,
there's a real sort of separation as far as production goes. Win totals are the only thing that really count, but I think there's a lot to be said for how you're winning games, the points for and the
yes,
points against, right?
yes.
So yeah, if I was to do it, I'd probably put like probably Philly,
Mm-hmm.
the Chiefs, and
Okay.
Baltimore as my 1, 2, 3, based
Nice.
on the record and their overall performance.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to start to consider Dallas in there. While you still
Yes.
sort of put Miami and the other team that's grudgingly back in there in that
Detroit
conversation too.
Lions.
Detroit is back to 7-2,
Yeah,
right? So,
yeah.
so yeah, that's how your top 5 or 6 are looking, and that's how they earned it, right? In my
And you
books,
know what? Great point about the point spread, points for, points against, point differential, because you see it visually in the games. Okay,
hmm
when Dallas wins, they overwin, meaning they're putting a
yeah,
35 piece, a 40 piece. They're overwinning. You know what I mean? Especially with the great play of CD Lamb. We got to talk about that guy. He's been playing amazing football.
yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
know what I mean? When the 49ers win, they overwin. They
hmm
destroy the Jags. You know what I mean? When the Ravens win, they overwin. They destroy the Bengals. So
Right.
you're seeing blowouts from these teams. So they're putting tons of points on the board, and their defenses are reflecting that on the
Yeah.
defensive part as well, where they're going to get turnovers, they're going to get sacks, they're going to get fumble recoveries, they're going to get pick sixes.
Yeah.
And you can see it, the domination of these teams. When then you look at the Eagles, they're barely beating the Commanders. You look at the
Right.
Chiefs, they're barely beating they're losing actually to Denver. You know what I mean? You'll
Okay.
see these teams that are top seeded, but they're barely scratching out wins,
And I
right?
think And I think the real litmus test is ultimately the points scored against your team, right? So that's why the large gap between points for and points against is often indicative of a team that's operating on both sides of the ball, right?
Yes.
Like San Francisco's got a fairly low total. The Ravens have a fairly low. Pardon me, the
Our defense is looking
Chiefs
amazing.
have a very low. Chiefs and the 49ers both are the only team with less than 150 points scored against, right?
Wow, the Chiefs, really? Chiefs defense that good, really?
Yeah, but the
Nice.
Cowboys have only allowed 165. So
Oh, okay. So what?
Cowboys are only 2 or 3 points a game less scored against them than those two teams. So yeah, those are your top 3 in points scored against that are that are in
Mm,
that top 5 or 10 conversation.
I like that.
So
I like that.
yeah, you have to start saying Dallas is maybe for real.
Uh,
The way they've come out firing off of their bye week, Dallas is starting to look more like we imagined that they would have.
and you know what? It's hard to even say that because they have a
I hate
history
them
of
so much.
flopping.
Yeah, it is hard to say it.
It's hard to say that Dak is an MVP candidate. It's hard to say that this team is playing amazing football, which they are. But what we can do right now is we can quickly touch on the lines and spreads. Maybe we
Yeah,
can
yeah,
go through this in a little fast pace if we can.
yeah, yeah,
Is
yeah.
there
We're
a
starting to run
game?
late.
Hey man, you know what? If I'm cool with staying a bit longer, but we gonna respect the peoples and their time.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
What do you
Podcasts
think?
have a shelf life.
That, that's what I'm saying. What do you think about the lines and spreads, brother? It should be on the screen for y'all to see.
Yeah.
Which team or games have caught your eye?
Well,
Mm,
of course, the big one that
which
everyone's talking about is Philly. Philly is going to Arrowhead Stadium. They're going to KC. So that, of course, is a
yeah,
rematch of last year's
Arrowhead
Super
big
Bowl,
time game.
right?
Yeah.
KC is currently favored by 2.5 points.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the
Also,
great
our game of
comments,
the week.
yeah,
Yeah.
by far, I think it's pretty much everybody's game of the week. And it's a standalone Monday night game. So just everything's
Yeah.
all set up for this to be sort of by far the
Everybody's
the
watching.
game. the game of the week for sure. But one of the more interesting comments I read this week is that these teams are so evenly matched. We're about to find out exactly what home field adds up to as a handicap because the teams are so evenly matched. It should come out to a tie. So, what is the handicap? Is it the 2.5 point spread they've got built in? Well, I've always called it a point and a half. That's what I've always heard. But these guys are saying maybe it's like 2.5 points, because the teams are so evenly matched. But yeah, looking at that, it started out as a 4-point game for the Chiefs, the betting line. So that's come down to 2.5 points. So it's obvious that the Philly money's starting to come in on that game. They've also seen the over-under go from about 50.5 points down to 45.5. So people are checking their expectations as far as the over-under is concerned. And I kind of agree with that too. This game, I doubt very much we're going to see 28-24. We might. I think we should expect more something like we saw in that Chiefs-Miami game, 21-14, something like that, 21-17, something quite close. So, I don't think they're going to be shooting the lights out, although Lord knows they have the potential. But this is really going to be a case of two defenses squaring off like sumo wrestlers. That's what I think is going to be happening here. Yeah. So I'm not expecting a huge point total, and I'm it's a big ask, but I think Philly's going to cover that spread. Just because I think we're getting better performance out of Jalen Hurts than we are over Patrick Mahomes. But it remains to be seen. I just think that Philly has more tools at wide receiver, for example, than does KC at the moment.
I'm gonna take devil's advocate. I'll go with the Chiefs. Well, we'll see.
There you go.
Devil's advocate. Yeah, I mean.
So I'm taking Philly in the under.
You know what I mean?
So I'm taking Philly in the under on that one. We talked about Minnesota earlier, so that intrigued me. We got Minnesota at Denver. That's a 2.5 point game. Denver's horrible against the spread, 3-5-1 on the season, and Minnesota's on a 5-0 streak against the spread. So I'm just going to go with Minnesota. I'm just going to play the numbers on that one. Rams in Seattle is shaping up to be like a pick'em game, and that's interesting, right? Because the return of Matt Stafford is the line there. It's caused the betting line to narrow considerably since Stafford has announced his return. So Rams are 4-4-1 against the spread. Rams are 4-4-1 against that spread. Seattle in the last 5 games is 0-4-1 against the spread. So my heart tells me as the home team to take Seattle, but a closer look at the numbers suggests that LA might be the bet there, that the Rams might cover on the road as road dogs in Seattle. Right. Over and under. Over and under a 44.5. I would gladly take the over on that. I think these two teams are going to produce points. I have a feeling this is going to be one of those wild and woolly West Coast games.
It's going to be a shootout.
And another quick one here. Jets are going to Buffalo. Buffalo's favored by 7, over under of 40. Buffalo's 3-7 against the spread and playing like crap. So I'm going to take the Jets to cover that spread. They may not get the win, but my guess is that the Jets will cover that spread. And Jets are 4-4-1 against the spread, very much like their record for the year. So it's just a coin flip with them anyways, regardless, for the win or to cover the spread. But it's better than Buffalo. And then, of course, we got the Browns at the Steelers this weekend. Steelers, it opened up as a 4.5 point game. It's down to 2 points now, basically a pick 'em. Steelers are still the underdog, but whatever. Steelers are 6-3 against the spread, but so are the Browns, right? Browns have had a good year, right? Now, the hilarious story about this opened up as the lowest over-under expectations for the week at 38 points expected over-under, right? It's dropped. It's dropped to 32 and a half is the over under expectations.
Oh
They're
my
basically
god.
saying they're basically saying touchdowns are going to be at a premium in this defensive contest that will probably be dominated by Chris Boswell and whoever the hell is kicking field goals for Cleveland.
They're
I
like,
being
ain't
the
nobody
eternal,
scoring. Ain't
I
nobody
being
scoring.
I, being the eternal optimist, will take the over on that, assuming, that Pittsburgh wins 32 and a half to nothing. And that's not going to happen. But yeah, I'm guessing it's a 17-19 game. So they probably go over
Oh
and
yeah.
Pittsburgh probably covers. So, but whatever. So
It's
yeah,
gonna be like you just said, AFC North, rough defensive game.
it's
That's what we're gonna see.
going to be a
Gonna be tough to
bruising,
watch.
messy, sloppy, ugly game. And I'm going to love every minute of it.
I'm gonna watch it, man. It affects the division. It's a fun game. We have an AFC podcast. You know what,
Uh,
F it, man? Let's squeeze it in, bro. Let's squeeze it in. F it, man. We're gonna squeeze it in overtime with Unk and Few. Unk, epic overtime OT from you last weekend. And I need you to give me the OT topic of this week. What you got in mind, bro? F it.
Oh
I'm down to talk
shoot.
about anything.
Nah, man. I gotta leave that up to you, man. You're the king
Up
of
to me?
culture. You're the
Hey
man with
man,
his finger on the culture. Yeah,
man.
man. Yeah. I'm your muse. I'm your feedback pole. You tell me the topic and I'll tell you what's up.
I'll rock with it. I'll rock with it, man. For me, something that's like a little bit interesting is there's been rumors, okay? Not even rumors, but it's like this dude who used to be an assistant to Will Smith came out and did a huge expose and said Will Smith's like bisexual, bro. Hollywood and Holly weird. I'm like, damn, what?
Yeah.
Big Willie time? And I'm like, damn, is Hollywood that weird? And like, you know what I mean? And they're like into weird Scientology shit, swingers, and I'm like, bruh, what's going on, man? It's like that whole industry, man. The
Mhm.
movie industry. What are your thoughts about the movie industry and their weird culture? I don't know, man. You know what I mean? Any thoughts on that, Unc? You know what I mean? I
I,
did a video on it earlier.
I
You know what I mean?
I've always thought Will Smith has been trying too hard on the man thing. You know what I mean? Like, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Just his whole, yeah. I mean,
Remember that slap? Remember that slap?
yeah. Well, yeah, like again, right? I mean, let me preface that by saying, like, there's not that there's anything wrong with it. In the old Seinfeld reference, right? Like,
Mm,
however he wants to live his life is his business, and
absolutely. No problem at all.
Will Smith is all about his work, his body of work is voluminous. He's done great things, all that
Mhm.
type of thing. But yeah, if you were to really push me and say, "Do you think it's possible?" I look back over the years, just being an older person, and with all the different types of people I've met over the years,
Yeah.
I can look back at certain aspects of him
Yeah.
and just say that, yeah, he's not really
It's
committed one
all
way. He's not really committed one way or the other, is he?
yeah,
Like,
he's on both ends of the spectrum. Me, I'm like, for me, my thing is right. Just be authentic, be who you are. Don't
either you
lie.
are.
Don't bullshit. And
Yeah,
the thing I don't like about the Hollywood or the movie industry is it's just so fake. It's so whack. And I'm like, yo,
it's
that's why
real
I
to
love
them.
sports. That's what I'm saying. It's real to them, but that's why I love
Really
sports. I love
weird.
football. Yeah, they're weirdos, man. And I'm like, man, I like watching sports. I like objective. We have a winner, we have a loser, we have yards, we have football, we have a basketball, we have a net, we have like a baseball, we have a bat. Like these are concrete things. But then you go to Hollywood and weirdos, and like I love art, I like movies, but I'm like, some of these people behind the scenes are just weirdos to me, man. They're
Yeah,
just weird to me, and I'm like, man, I'm hopping out of it.
you're, you're only you're only limited by your ambition in California, apparently. Um,
Right?
what, dude? What can I tell you, man?
Yeah.
It's just a place where, like I said, right, everybody's dreams comes true, right? There's a lot of almost every story in Hollywood involves somebody who beat the odds and came from nowhere most of the time to
Right.
become a successful actor. And once you get that success and you have the resources and the money behind you and whatnot, you can start to make your other dreams come true, right? Before
Right.
you know it, you've got a whole pantheon of different types of art that you've created. And surely to goodness, at some point or another, you've got to come across the calculus that open-minded people are creative people. And
Yeah, of
if
course.
creative people are out there creating art that's successful, and they're achieving all their dreams, right?
Yeah.
Chances are they're open-minded about other things too, right?
Yeah,
you
you're right.
know
Look, I didn't even think about it like that. If you're an
yeah, like
open-minded creative person, it kind of makes sense that you'd be in the
boundaries and
rainbow.
boundaries, limitation, and fences are not really words. They're not really part of their everyday jargon and thinking, right? you
Yeah.
know but at the end of the day, I don't think it's a product necessarily of money and safety and security and all these different things that you enjoy with multi-millions.
Yeah.
I just think that there's a predilection among the creative to be creative
Yeah.
when looking at
Be a
possibilities,
little more flexible or a little more,
certain
yeah. Yeah.
openness or whatever, right? But at the end of the day, right, they say 1 in 10 when it comes to homosexual
Really? I
behavior.
didn't even know that.
So 1 in 10 is basically the number that science gives to it within the population.
Yeah.
So out of every 100 actors, there's going to be 10 that are that way, right? Maybe 15
Yeah.
that are both ways,
For
right?
me, I always think about it in my mind. I'm like, damn, just be open about it, be real, and don't like lie to the public or lie to
Well,
yourself, man. You know what
well,
I mean? Like, I'm like, damn, it's 2023. Keep it real. And I'm like, yo, Will, what's going on, dog?
yeah, but the thing is, he's married and he has a family, and out of his many aspirations, one of which is clearly, obviously, a certain amount of normalcy, right? He
Right,
wants, you
right.
know, and
That's the
that's
technology. Yup.
and that is something that many people in those communities, I would imagine, would have to struggle with, right? Because you want certain traditional things, but you're not a traditional person. So now
Right.
what, right? Um, so
Yeah, that's
sometimes,
interesting.
we all make deals with the devil to get the things that we want in this life, and I guess that's one of the deals maybe that Will has made. Maybe if that's the thing that
Like,
he's.
and for me, I'm like, bruh, I don't know. I'm just an authentic person myself. I keep it real. You know what I mean? So are
Yeah,
you, Unc.
yeah. Well,
This is why our podcast is dope. We keep it
but
real
you
with
got
the
nothing to
people like
lose either,
ourselves.
though, right? You ain't got nothing
You're
to
right.
lose either, right?
You're
Like,
right. You're right.
okay. Speaking of that too, right? Did you see Tim Scott? Tim
Tim
Scott
Scott?
is a Tim Scott's a presidential candidate on the Republican side
Okay.
from South Carolina.
Okay. What's
Yeah.
good? What's good with Tim Scott?
Well, Tim Scott is a religious conservative, as you might imagine,
Okay.
right? And he's about my age, right? So he's a guy who's he's over
50.
50, right?
50.
And
Okay.
so, but he's been unmarried to this point, and he's
What?
even had to feel he's even yeah, and he's
What?
and his reason for this is that he says he hasn't met the right person. He's a busy guy, all these types of things, right? And and also as an evangelical, right? He can't just have like girls falling out his
Don't
pocket left and right.
evangelicals get married like at 2 or like at 20? Like they get married all the time.
Well, sure, that's just it, right? And he hasn't met the right girl, so so that
This
brings up
guy's
the
a
next
gay.
question too. Has he been celibate all these years? To which he hums and haws. But he's trying to sort of give the impression that that's not really a question for anybody. Anyway, so in this point in his campaign, which he
Yeah.
just in retrospect abandoned a week later. But anyways, up until 2 weeks ago, he introduced his girlfriend. She's got 3 kids. She's a
That's a
designer.
prostitute, bro.
She's a designer in
That's
Charlotte,
a
whatever.
hooker.
Yeah. So immediately, everyone starts saying like, "Oh, Tim Scott's grown a beard," right? Because the previous joke was, she lives in Canada, you wouldn't know her, right? Um,
We live in
but the
Canada.
point
That's
is,
that funny part.
to your point, like,
Yeah.
why doesn't he just, whatever he is, one way or the other, why didn't he just come out and clarify, clear the air, all that type of thing? And the point is because he's got a lot to lose. He's a Republican
Yeah.
politician,
Yeah.
dark-skinned black guy from the South to
Oh,
begin
he
with.
black?
Oh yeah, dude,
I
he
didn't
black
even
like
know that.
he black like you,
He black
but
like me?
Yeah.
And he's in his
So
50s, never been
and
married?
he's in the
Come on,
Republican
dog.
Party, right? So he's already got it stacked up against him, right? Yeah, you're trying to convince
Come
people
on,
that
dog.
really don't like you to begin with, to vote for you. But the thing is, though, he aligns tax wise and religion wise and culture war wise, all that crap. He aligns completely with the Republican Party. But it's just like,
Hey, I will say this: there is black conservatives for sure. My
oh, there
thing
are.
is,
There's lots of them.
my thing is, if you're in your 50s, you've never been married, and you're an evangelical Christian, the assumption is that
Kind of
you're a
kid.
virgin. Because at that point, you have not had sex with a woman. Because to have sex with a woman under the Christian umbrella is through marriage, and you've never
Right.
been married. You
So
are
yeah,
gay. You're homosexual. It is what it
which
is.
is
But you
which is
can't expose that because you're in a presidential candidate for the
right.
Republican Party.
Right, exactly, right. So, but the thing is, though, there
Yeah.
comes a point where you have to ask yourself, what's weirder, right? Being an out of the
Mm.
closet homosexual or bisexual, whatever, just honest with the world and all that stuff,
Yeah.
right? There's
Stick
nothing
it
weird
real.
about it to begin with. It's
No,
perfectly
no, no.
normal, right?
Be yourself.
You're gonna tell me that unmarried and a virgin at 51 or whatever is not like the weirdest thing out there? You're
That's
telling
weird
me
as
that's not the
that,
aberrant behavior? Yes, it is.
bro. That is weird as fuck, dog. And now you have all of a sudden a girlfriend who comes out of nowhere.
Right,
That's a
right.
prostitute, dog. You hired her. She's getting her wire transfer. She's getting transferred
Yeah, yeah,
for
yeah.
appearances. Are you out of your damn mind? You don't turn 50 something and then get her your first girlfriend. Like,
I put I made a really funny meme about that. It showed I had like the Brady Bunch square, right? I don't know
yeah.
if you know what I'm talking about, the
Yeah, I
Brady
know the
Bunch, that
Brady
old
Bunch story.
television
Yeah.
show. And it shows
Yeah,
the three girls on the one side and the three
yeah.
boys on the other, and the mom and the dad, in this
Yeah,
sort of
yeah.
square, right? And then Alice is number 9 in the middle, right? The housekeeper. So
For
I
sure.
made a meme that showed Tim Scott on the bottom, his girlfriend, his wife, or at the bottom, her 3 daughters on the side, and on the other side, on Tim Scott's side, I've got X X X, like
Oh
man,
man.
because he brings nothing to this Brady Bunch, right?
It's like, damn, I'm still stuck on the fact there's a black man in his 50s, never been married, never had a girlfriend. I'm like, bruh, just come out the closet, man.
Yeah,
You'll
dude.
you'll be happier that way. Just live your life, bro.
Yeah, yeah. Just the idea that you're like non-sexual, you're a monk, right? It don't fly
It
no
don't
matter
fly
where you're
like that.
from.
And
It
and,
don't. It
and you
don't.
know what? The thing about the black church, there's always a gay church director, like choir director, or a gay man who's really in the church. And that's like a little kept secret in the black church. There's always gay
Dude,
people in the church. And,
dude.
and they have to
Medicine.
like almost hide. And I'm like, damn, like let's just be real out here in these streets instead of like trying to pretend and fake the funk out here. You know what I mean?
That's
Me, I'm
yeah.
like, you know what I mean?
That's a whole other conversation. I attended
Definitely.
Macedonia Baptist Church in Florida,
Oh, okay.
a black Baptist church for about 10 years. Well,
Oh,
my
damn.
kid,
Yeah, you have Ian Porter in the black church. Let's go.
my kids, right? My kids, I
Yo,
want to raise them in an environment that reflects who they are, right? As far as, and besides, no, every fourth Sunday was a male choir. It was like going to see Ray Charles. It was awesome. But
yeah.
yeah, no, it was really interesting because listen, science tells us 2 things: that we're all the
Mm,
same, that the only thing difference between us is the melanin. So if 1 in
that's
10
dope.
if 1 in 10 is true there, if 1 in 10 is true in
Oh,
that church also, right? But
100%.
what there is more of in the evangelical community, white or black, but in the black church especially, is yes, this sort of denial about the existence of homosexuality and whatnot. And it's like
Oh,
it's not
100%.
healthy. It's not healthy. In fact, there was one weekend in particular
Okay.
where I remember, so this would have been like 2008, like deep into the new millennium. And
Okay.
these guys come out there, and this was progress. I understand this was progress.
Wow.
This guy came in to address the church to talk about sort of like how many people in their community sort of have died of AIDS, but yet it's been called something else. So here comes in, like it was pulmonary disorder. It was,
Yeah.
So here was this guy, another black man from the community, from that church community as well, who
Yeah.
came in and he kept repeating the lines like he died of pulmonary da 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 da, but I know he died of AIDS. And he repeated that 3 or 4 different times. And this is a very socially conservative, like all Black Baptist churches, is a very socially conservative. There are certain things they don't want to talk about.
Yeah,
right?
Black churches are very conservative, extremely.
And so, but this guy, obviously he was invited in there by the deacons and whatnot. So it's not like the elders of the church didn't know this guy was coming in to talk. They knew he was. But the degree to which they tried to be very delicate in introducing the conversation as late as 2008. I was like, whoa, these guys, like, it's true. This is, people really are conservative about this, socially conservative when it comes to this issue. And I was just like, yeah, as a modern person who grew up in a church where, long ago we decided that there was no literal truth to this stuff, that it's, your Bible and whatnot, it's just a good guidepost for your moral upbringing and whatnot. You have to make your own decisions about the world and life and science. And listening to science and medicine is one of those choices and decisions, right? God gave you a brain for a reason, use it, right? Yeah. So yeah, for me to see them tap dancing around that whole thing was like, I was like, whoa, okay, this is different. This is different. Not that like white evangelical churches are any more different. I mean, the only real difference there is
the Joel Osteen types.
Yeah, well, the difference with those guys is, they're ready to warm up the cattle cars. But among like Anglicans and Presbyterians, or these like your old school, sort of European sects of Christianity, these people long ago said that, like, of course the Bible's not a literal document. What, are you stupid?
It's definitely for me, what I mean, we can go deep in this, but for me, I look at it like this, right? Just show love and respect people for who they are. Don't treat them like Jesus would treat them. Treat them right. Treat them with respect, and just that's how I look at it. You know what I mean? Everybody deserves some kindness and needs to be treated right. And for me, I always say, live truthfully, live honesty. Don't live in a lie. You know what I mean?
Well,
don't live in a lie, because a lie is harder to keep up with than the truth. You say the truth, you ain't got to memorize or remember it or what. No, you live the truth. You ain't got to memorize it. You live a lie, you got to remember them lies and you got to repeat them. And that's how I look at it, bro. So for me, regardless of any church you go to, I have some honesty and kindness in that, and then you're doing the right thing. At least that's how I see it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. And I think that just goes for everything in life. Like, what type of society have we created where some people are afraid to be themselves? That's unfortunate. Right. So that's how I would finish up that whole overtime skit.
Yeah, we definitely went a little deep in this overtime, and I like it though. I like going deep. You know what I mean?
We'll see where 77 minute gets us on the views, but okay.
Yeah, we snapped on this one. But you know why we did it? Because we love and rock with y'all. We rock with people who are rocking with us. Slap a like on your way out. We got love for each and every one of y'all watching Unc and Few and OT. And we're out. See y'all next week, man.
One love.
Yeah.